Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrew Stillman. I'm a systems developer at New Visions for Public Schools in New York City, and I'm here today with my colleague Jared Carano.
How you doing?
And we're going to approach a problem of practice this week that we believe has a lot of really powerful implications for any kind of school, but in particular public schools in New York City that face a lot of challenges in terms of coordinating all the different systems that they have to interact with in order to run effective schools. So the way I would describe this problem of practice is, how can school leaders curate a private internal space that encourages transparency across a staff so that people feel there's a sense of shared purpose, and the systems inside that school come together in a coherent way so that everyone feels like they're prioritizing the same things, and they can see practice happening across the school. So the goal here would be to build a sense of shared responsibility and to really prioritize the things that the school leadership team has decided need to be the focus of the school. And how do we do it in a way that's flexible, customizable, and can ultimately be kind of tweaked to fit the unique needs of each school? So the answer, we think, is that schools can build really effective staff intranets, right? Most modern organizations have internal-facing websites where these kinds of things are curated, links out to other portals, content that's specifically internal. And so we're going to focus today on some of the basics of setting up an internal intranet that's a staff-only site for a school. So some of the skills you're going to get, we're going to look at further exploring some of the rationale for doing this in the first place, being able to take a templated Google site, and Jared's prepared a really nice Google Sites template for you to be able to use as a launching point. How to make sure that the site is private and that it's shared appropriately, and strategies ultimately. Next week, we're going to talk about strategies for actually getting people to use the site on a regular basis and building it into your school's workflow. So some of the other reasons we think Google site internally are a really good idea. Often schools like to set up Google Forms, and what tends to happen is Google Form links get sent out by email. They quickly get buried and they fall out of the flow of people's work. So you ask people to use forms for this, that, or the other process in your school, but you don't give them a way to easily find those forms. A Google site is a great way to curate links to those kinds of resources. Likewise with document collections, Google Drive tends to be a bit of a jumble. You end up with everyone's drive looking differently, and so you sit down in a meeting and you say, can everyone find the agenda document? And everyone's looking in a different place, and often it can be very time consuming. So being able to curate links, curate documents, and folders in Drive in a common shared space is something we think is really important. Living out of your inbox tends to become the default in a lot of organizations that go Google. You'll find that sort of everyone is on this reflexive, rather than being preemptive and mindful in their work, often just responding and living out of an inbox. And so this is one way to combat some of that ADHD and really create a focused place where everybody is on the same page together. The other piece is obviously, you set the priorities in this space. So if you're successful in getting the internal site to be part of the life of the school, and you want to put a certain piece of student data on there, let's say you're tracking college readiness, you can really make that the focus because it's real estate that you collectively control, and it helps shape the work of the team. So being thoughtful about what goes there can really shape the agenda. Last piece is, Google spreadsheets are an incredibly powerful real-time data tool for teams. Being able to take data out of core systems, build charts, show tallies on form responses. A lot of this data helps you monitor processes inside of schools. And the fact that you can have live feeds from these spreadsheets and embedded charts right in your Google site, it's sort of a dashboard building toolkit a lot of folks don't take advantage of. So this is kind of some of the overarching reasons why we think staff intranet can be a really powerful thing in a school. So without any further ado, let's have Jared show us a few basics in terms of how to set these things up.
Great, thanks, Andrew. So I'm going to jump into a screen share here. Let's see. Okay, and all right, so I'm just going to start right from the beginning. We've created a template. If you've never, if you want to navigate to your sites page, if you're logged into any of your Google products from Gmail or from anywhere, you should be able to get into it by clicking on the sites button here. You can also from any browser window, just go to sites.google.com, and it'll pull up your sites page with any sites that you've previously created. So we're going to go ahead and click on Create to create a new site, and then we're going to click Browse the Gallery for more to get into the public template gallery. So click Public. And if you just type in New Visions for public schools and search, our template here, our intranet template, should pop up, and go ahead and click on that. You could preview the template beforehand if you like. Just go ahead and click Select. And then we want to create a name for our site. So just call this School Intranet site, and then click Create. And this could take a second or two to while it's being created. Okay, so now you'll see our basic template. This is geared towards our New Vision schools, so there's some resources here that are specific to New Vision schools. But basically, if you've never worked in Google Sites before, you'll see across the top you have this this sort of editing bar. If you're an editor on the site and you're logged in, you will get this bar across the top that gives you basically 4 buttons. The first one is what you would click to edit the page that you are on. The second button is what you would click to create a new page. And this third button is more. There's a number of things in here that a few of which we'll get into. And then the fourth button is the share button, which is how you control who can view your site and who has access to it. So let's see. So the first thing we'll do is talk about how you would navigate around editing the overall site layout. So you'll see I have sort of these tabs going across the top, and if you wanted to sort of change the way some of that looks, you could go in and go into More and click Edit Site Layout, and you'll see that pulls up this additional set of buttons across the top. So if I have it set up with a horizontal navigation bar. Maybe you don't like that as much and you want to create a sidebar. You can easily switch that by doing that. You can remove the headers and footers if you want to. Pretty basic. Also, you'll notice when you're in this mode, when you hover over this horizontal navigation bar, it turns blue, or hover over the site header, it turns blue. If you click into those, you can edit those. So if we wanted to add our our domain logo or add a custom logo, we could do that. Change how the alignment, that kind of thing, from that area. We could similarly click into this horizontal navigation bar. You see all of the tabs that we currently have here. This is where we can add new pages to our navigation bar. If we want to change the style, from tabs to links.
So Jared, I have a question here, which is,
sure.
I noticed in here that you have some links that point to external websites. This gets me excited because all the work I've done in schools, I end up with one site where I have to go this one site where I have to go for that. I got an E-grade book. I've got a learning management system. So frequently we're asking teachers to go to lots of different online resources in their everyday work. So can I build a menu that has menu options that lead to other sites?
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll see down here, this add page button is what's going to allow you to add pages that you've created within your Google site to the menu item, the menu navigation bar. But if you wanted to add external sites, you can also do that by clicking this Add URL button, which just pulls up this little control panel box, and you just type in the text that you want to display and the website that you want the text to link to, and hit OK, and you'll see that that gets added down at the bottom here. And these little buttons on the side, these up and down and in and out arrows, allow you to change the location of where you put sites or links. So by default it gets added to the bottom, but if we wanted this New Visions link to be right after the home page, for instance, we could just keep clicking up until it's second here. If we wanted it to sit as a subpage under home, we could click. We can indent it in by clicking this right arrow, and I'll show you what that looks like right now.
So we had a question from one of our viewers, Tara Nagar, who's a fantastic tech up in the Bronx at the Young Women's Leadership School. Wants to know if he should start building his own site right now as we're talking. I would say kick back and take it all in at the moment, because we're going to probably move faster than you can follow, and this is all going to be recorded, so you'll be able to watch this again, and then you can also reach out to us for support. So just relax and take it in would be my advice.
I think that makes sense. Okay, so I showed you a little bit of how you go about editing the overall site layout, and what that means is when you're editing the site layout, if regardless of which tab, which page we click into, that stays the same. So you'll see school intranet site, our New Visions logo, that stays the same regardless of what page we're on. But now, if we want to get into editing a specific site, we go and click this little pencil icon. It says Edit Page. And that'll bring up another set of sort of editing tools. So you'll see you have sort of a basic text editing menu bar here, and these 4 drop-down menus. Insert is where we can add a whole bunch of interesting things. This is where we have an image that you can use by default. If you want to put in an image of your own school, you could delete that one and add one from here. If you want to add a text box or embed your school calendar, insert some charts like Andrew was talking about from a spreadsheet, Drive documents. This is where you're going to do that from.
I just want to say that this is my most favorite part about Google Sites. I don't think Google Sites is a particularly attractive website solution. What I love about it is that it integrates so tightly with the rest of the Google platform. So just that anything that is fair game, whether it's a photograph sitting in Drive or in your Google Plus or a Google group you set up or a map or a video, it all just very, very quickly gets inserted in Pages, unlike with any other website building solution.
And yeah, it's a great point. So I'm going to show a little bit of what that kind of looks like. So we're still in the editing, the page editing interface, and so you'll notice throughout this template I put in text that just sort of, it's like little suggestions for what we're thinking could go where. Obviously you could take that or leave it and do whatever you want. But so down in the right here I have embed layered calendars here. So the idea is we're going to delete that text and go ahead and insert a calendar. So we go to insert, go over to calendar. It's going to pull up all of the calendars that I have access to, not necessarily calendars I own, but just anything I have access to. And so I'm just going to use my personal or my work calendar here, but you can imagine your school's events calendar, something like that. You can actually add more than one calendar at a time, which is nice. So before it actually gets inserted, you have this sort of menu to tweak some of the options. You could change the height in pixels. You could set change the default view. So let's say we want an agenda view, which is kind of like a list. We're going to set our time zone down to Eastern Time, New York. Maybe we don't want to show the calendar name. I don't know. Maybe we want to change this from my name to school calendar. And go ahead and click Save. So now when you add these sort of different widgets or various things, it typically looks like this gray box, and you have sort of another little menu bar going across the top. So if you want to go change those properties that we just set, you do it that way by clicking the little gear. If you want to, change the justification, we're going to center it, make the text wrap around it. You do that in this view by clicking on one of these gray boxes. And then when we go ahead and click Save on the page itself, that's when we're going to see the actual calendar that's been embedded. And you'll see this is my calendar. It's in agenda view by default, like we told it to do, but you can still click into the month view or the week view. You could skip ahead. So anyway, this is a really nice feature to have on your sort of school's homepage. So another thing we have here is the principal's memos, or this is basically, by default it's included in the template that we created, but what it is a recent posts. It's a gadget called recent posts, and so that is connected to this other page over here called principal's memo. We're envisioning schools using this as a way for principals to send out their weekly memo. And in one of these Hangouts, maybe down the road, we'll get into a script that's currently being developed by our colleague Danielle Scaramolino that allows anything posted to this a website to also get emailed out to a distribution list, which currently is not available. But we think that could be a nice way for principals' memos to be sent out weekly by email. But then there's sort of this living repository in sort of a blog form where someone says, "Oh, what was that memo from 2 months ago? There was something, I don't quite remember. Let me go back and find that." So that's a nice feature. Okay, so now I want to show so I just showed how you can embed a calendar. I also want to show kind of what Andrew gets excited about, how this sort of seamless integration with other Google products, right? We have this curriculum tab here where we're envisioning staff could embed documents and folders related to their curriculum work. So let's say we want to go in and set this up for the math department. What's nice, so we're gonna, I'm gonna click on the math page and then click on edit it, and again go into insert, and what's really interesting, what I find really interesting is instead of, we can embed a specific document, but we can actually also embed an entire folder. So I'm gonna click on folder, and I am going to search for my math folder, which I created ahead of time. And so what I actually did, by clicking on the folder, it opens it up because you might have a subfolder in that folder. But what I want to do is go back and find my math folder. Why is it not letting me do it? So there's supposed to be, let me get out of here and try this again. There's supposed to be a little checkbox. Okay, so now here's my math folder. There's the checkbox. Once I check that, I can click select, and that will you can set some of the attributes here if you want to. I'm just going to click save. Maybe we want to center it, and then I'm going to save the page, and you'll see what this looks like. So now you see those 3 documents that I had in this folder are now sort of embedded right here in the website, which is a really nice way to keep your teams organized. And what else is really nice about it, right? So say I am a teacher on the math team, and I'm going to go into my drive, and say I create a new, say I'm going to create a new document, and I want to share it with my colleagues on this team. Let me find this again. Okay, so say I create a new math curriculum document, and just by going ahead and adding that document to this folder here, the next time anyone clicks into this math page back on our site, uh, that file is automatically added here. So it's just like a really nice way to keep everyone sort of organized and on the same page.
So there's a little gotcha in what Jared just said, which I noticed that the folders and files that Jared was just referring to didn't look like they were shared. And Jared, what will happen if you are not you right now and you go to this page? What will you see, given that the folder and the files are not actually shared with the rest of the staff?
Right, that's a great point. So currently, if I were to share this link with anyone and they were to come to this website, even though they might be shared on the website and have privileges to access the site itself, they're going to get a big, I forget what the error message is, but you're going to get some sort of error message where this folder lives saying that you don't have permission to view this folder and would you like to request permission from the owner. So if I wanted you to be able to see this, I would actually have to go into my math folder and share this with you, or make it public, or share it with the domain. Anyone I would want to be able to have access to this folder would, and maybe in this case I only want the math team to be able to see it, which is nice. Maybe I want anyone at the school to be able to see it, or just the math team and just administrators, something like that. So you have control over that here, but you would have to do that if you want people to see the things that you're embedding.
Great. So this kind of gets into the next topic, which is privacy generally. It seems like if you're going to build a staff site, you want to know that kids can't get to it. And even if they could get the URL, that they wouldn't be able to see anything on there. Because I want to imagine that I can put student data there and not have to worry about it. So how do you do that?
Right. So by default, when you create a new site, it's going to be set to I think you can set this at the domain level, so your domain administrator has set how sites are shared by default. So for instance, here at New Visions, anyone at New Visions can find and edit a site that's created by default. So if we were a school and so we had students on the domain, then by default they would be able to find and edit the entire website. So you want to be careful here and make sure you set this to the sharing settings that you want to use. And most likely you're going to want this to be private, which means only the people that you give explicit permission to are going to be able to access it. So we're going to save that as private. Okay, so and then once you do that, here's where it's really, again, last week we talked a little bit about creating groups on your domain, and this sort of speaks to why those are useful and important. But ideally, you'll probably have something like a group called staff or all staff, something like that. So this is a fake one, staff at myschool.org. So by including them here and making them, maybe you don't want them to be editors, but viewers, you're going to set those permissions here. So I'm going to do that, click share and save. And so now anyone who's a member of that group can access this website. Another reason using groups is better than adding individuals. One, it's a lot quicker, but now say some of your staff leave, you hire on some new staff. Just by adding them or taking them away from that group, they automatically get access to this website or lose access to this website when they leave, which is really important and really nice.
So I have a question. I might want to have a staff site that then I give specific people the ability to maintain different parts of it, because I don't want to take it all on myself. I want to delegate that. So maybe the math team should have the ability to edit the math site. And so that's one issue. I would like to be able to really, at a fine-grained level, give certain people the ability to edit certain pages. I would also like, I think, to have an administrative section of my site that only administrators can see, right? Like we might want to keep our teacher observation data charts somewhere that we can all easily get to, and I don't necessarily want all my teachers to see it. Is that possible?
Yeah, that's totally possible. And we've actually set the site up all. So when if you download this template, you'll see you have an admin panel, an admin page already set up, and we did have the idea that you would restrict access to this only to administrators. And what's nice is if I'm logged in as a staff person and not an administrator, once we set it up the correct way, they actually just won't even see this page at all. But if I'm an administrator and I'm logged in, and then I come to the site, I will see this tab. So it's a really nice way to have one internal site, but to sort of put access to resources, limit access to resources just to the people that need them. So let me show you how you would do that. So we're going to click back into Share up in the top right. And so there's this button up in the top right, Enable Page Level Permissions. But before we click that, the way this works is anyone you want to give page level permission to, you have to have given permission to them at the whole site level. So even though administrators might also be part of all staff, if you want to give the group named admin@myschool.org a page level permission, you would have to first add them at the overall site level. So we're going to say admin@myschool.org, and that they can edit, and we're going to add them to this top level. Why didn't that work?
It says there's because it's a fake account. So why don't you just use my email address?
So say Andrew represents the administrative group. Okay, so we're gonna add Andrew. Okay, so now Andrew Stillman can edit this entire site. So now we're gonna click into Enable Page Level Permissions. It gives you a little warning. There's a little guide if you need help. I'm gonna click to turn it on. Okay, and so now the way this works is so over here on the left, you have this site map. Maybe we don't want admin to be able. Let me see.
Let's say we don't want the staff to be able to see the admin page.
Right.
Let's deal with that first.
Okay. So if we click on the admin page, this represents each page that's in our website. By default, each subpage inherits the privileges of the overall site. So now we clicked into admin, and it says use same permissions and members as the school intranet site, the overall site. But we want to change that because that's not what we want here. And we're going to use custom permissions, and we're going to click do not add new users to this page. So what's happening here is if we go ahead and add a new user or a new group to the top level permission, to the permissions of the top level page, they will not automatically get added to this admin page, which is important. So we're going to click Save. And now we can go down here and remove the ability of staff to see this page. And then we have to click Save before we can do that. Right, and so now you see these dashed lines, it worked. So now the only people that have the ability to see the admin page are myself as the owner of the website and Andrew, who represents our administrators.
So it seems like this same process would apply to opening up, let's say, the curriculum pages to the different teams. Is that right? If I wanted everyone on the English team to be able to edit the English team space, what would I do first?
So first you would have to go back to, well, we could do it right from here, but first you would have to go to the top level, so the overall site page, and add the math team here. So again, I'm not going to be able to add the math team because I don't have a group, but I'll just say I'll add Danielle.
Not Dan Scaramellino.
No. Danielle Scaramellino. And we're not going to annoy her with a notification right now. We're going to share that and save. Okay, so now it's still thinking, you could see. Okay, so now Danielle's been added here. Now we want to add her as an editor to the math page. We click on math. Whoops. Click on math. Again, click change because we don't want to use the same permissions as the overall site. Use custom permissions. Do not add new users to this page. Click save. Go down, take off staff. Since Andrew's admin, maybe we do want him to view this. If we didn't, we could take him off as well. Then we're going to save the changes, and now Danielle, aka our math team, has access to the math page. What I think is important to note, though, now is because Danielle now also has the ability to edit everything in the overall site. So we would want to go back to the site page and find Danielle and say, make sure that she can only view the overall page. So any page that's not the math page, she's able to view it, but she's not able to edit it. So that's important.
So we had a question from Tara again. He asks, he says, I think if you give someone editing privileges, they only have privileges up to their role on the domain settings. For example, I don't think they'd be able to change the site layout. Let me disentangle that a little bit. So it's not that I don't think the domain settings make a difference unless that user belongs to an organizational unit that is not allowed to use Google Sites. So I'm not sure if what you mean is domain settings, but in some cases, schools don't allow certain sets of users to even use Google Sites. That's not something we recommend. But I think more importantly, it's what is the most editing privilege you have when you're an editor. So there's a big difference between being a site editor and a site owner. If you could, Jared, go back into the share panel for a second. You'll see that sites can be set to have multiple owners. So let's imagine, for example, that I too want to be able to edit everything about the site. When I say everything, I mean there's a difference between being able to edit the content and being able to edit the layout of the site. And an editor is restricted to being able to edit page content, but they can't change the navigation structure. And I believe they can't change any of the themes, colors, fonts, etc. They can't reorder the pages. So essentially, an editor is restricted to editing page content. An owner is allowed to edit everything you see in this managed site area. So just show real quickly how you would set me to be a co-owner of the site.
Sure. So again, we would want to make sure that we're highlighting the top level site page there, and then find Andrew in our list of who we've given access to, and change him from an editor to an owner. You click Save Changes, and now.
Now I would be able to access the Manage Site area and the Edit Site Layout feature, whereas before I would not have been able to. So that's the difference. Hopefully that answers Tara's question.
Okay, so yeah. So let's see. Did we have anything else to talk about?
I think this is pretty good for our first week. The outstanding questions in my mind have to do with how to get people to actually use this thing. What I find is that typically you can introduce something like this to your staff, and it's like one more URL in a sea of crap that's flying at them every day, right? So, and typically Google Sites URLs are not easy to remember. It's like sites.google.com/a/blah, blah. It's like whatever. So there's a user behavior problem, right? Everything we do in terms of making this site useful is going to go a long way towards making people want to go there. But what's going to make it really stick in their behavior? And we're going to talk about some of those strategies next week. Just to give a little preview, we're going to look at creating a subdomain, so making a really nice, clean, pretty URL that is easy to get to. And there's some technicalities in there that not everyone knows how to do, including changing some DNS settings. So we're going to get into that. We're also going to look at that principals memo because that's going to be huge. If you can make sure that all weekly communications from the principal are blasting out from the site, it's going to be great. And so we'll hopefully be in a place where we can show off Danielle's new script and give you some access to that. And there's a few other tricks we have up our sleeves to help cement this into people's day-to-day workflow. We're looking forward to seeing you again in a week. Jared, nice job.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.
All right.